The theme of this celebration, Pan-Africanism and African Renaissance, means we want to complete our emancipation through a total recovery of the African identity and African dignity, and reach greater heights in achievements in our quest for peace, stability, prosperity, in order to bear with pride and humility our responsibilities in the international arena. We cannot ignore the common heritage shared by our two regions, forged by historic ties as well as by circumstances of which we have not always been the masters. Indeed, we have no choice but to take responsibility over the respective destinies in a collective approach, as this is dictated by our past, present, as well as by the need for us to successfully fight for a bright future for both our regions. We should therefore bear in mind that we as a generation have a historic opportunity through this political framework to establish a common front to address issues that hinder our move towards achieving socio-economic development, social justice, peace within our various regions.
I think there are specific issues that were raised and agreed. For an example, part of the agreement when we met at Venezuela was to establish a secretariat which was supposed to take forward whatever was agreed. Of course, one understands the circumstances since then up to now. That proposal has been revived very strongly, and I think we've taken a very deliberate decision that a permanent secretariat must exist, and there are specific countries who are charged with this responsibility, so that we could pick up all the agreements and the understandings that we have, so that with time, by the time we go to the fourth, we'll be able to say this is a progress we've made. So I think that, in fact, is at the heart of what is going to happen since now. Because any other agreement that we agreed, if there was no mechanism, no structure to carry forward, it would not necessarily have worked. I think now that we've taken that very clear decision, I'm certain that coming the next summit, we'll be able to get a report of what has happened. I think as the discussions went yesterday, for an example, it was very clear that the reliance that we have had for years with the old economies, it is clear that they've got difficulties as well. And their difficulties seem to be very big, that our reliance on them continuously, without establishing our own, to stand on our own, might be a handicap to us. And that therefore we need to work hard to ensure that this relationship, which is not just Latin America and Africa only, but is actually the agreed principle of South-South relations. How do we develop the South? How to develop the emerging economies? So it is within that context, in fact, that we feel this particular relationship needs bigger attention. The question that has been there all the time, how do we concretize, how do we actualize the kind of relationships that we have in the South? I think you look at IPSA is one of an element to concretize specific countries with specific possibilities. I think the BRICS in itself also actualizes what we need to do in the South, particularly if you take the size and the economies of the countries that are in BRICS. This is one of the things that we are trying to say, how do we bring about concrete programs and things among ourselves? With BRICS coming to South Africa, for an example, what we have done, because the first time in the history of humankind that this kind of grouping meets in the African continent, we have then invited a lot of leaders in the continent, particularly those who are in charge of specific things like the chairpersons of 5 economic regions of the continent, those who are championing the infrastructure, that along the BRICS summit, alongside, we will have a retreat with the BRICS leadership together with a very huge contingent of the African leaders to discuss the issues that affect Africa. As South Africa, we regard our presence in the BRICS as really representing Africa, representing therefore 1 billion people